The Jedi Order was a troubled organization, full of contradictions. They rejected fear and ignorance, yet they let their fear of the dark side make them ignorant about the Sith, which ultimately led them to their downfall. The Jedi also rejected being involved in politics, yet they served at the behest of the Chancellor of the Republic as generals in a civil war without much consideration of the consequences. The Jedi also rejected attachments, yet the relationship between a master and apprentice is exactly the type of bond that breeds such emotional connections. There's no doubt that Obi-Wan Kenobi loved Anakin like a brother, and there's no doubt that Anakin loved Ahsoka like a little sister. And while love itself wasn't forbidden, the Jedi understood the importance of it. The next and adjacent step to love was attachment, leading to obsession and abandonment of one's duties. Yet during Order 66, a decision was made unanimously by almost every Jedi Knight and Master who had an apprentice or youngling besides them. Instead of trying to preserve their own lives so that they can survive and continue to fight against the dark side and the Sith, most Jedi Masters decided to preserve the lives of the younger members of the Order. Sure, one could argue that these young ones were the future of the Jedi Order, but their knowledge and mastery of the Force was incomplete. The secrets of the Jedi Order were held in the minds of the senior ranks, many of whom were gunned down trying to save their much less experienced disciples. In today's video, we'll celebrate the individual sacrifices these heroes made. In many ways, they rejected the Jedi Temple's biggest flaw, and that was the rejection of emotional bonds and connections. These Jedi Masters would rescue their younger charges not because they deserved it, but because of that paternal and maternal instinct that all humans, and some of the less degenerate alien beings in the galaxy have, for the young and helpless. Even if Jaro Tapal didn't have access to the Force, he would still be a domineering presence. The male Asat was easily a foot taller than your average clone trooper, and so when he wielded his double-ended lightsaber, it seemed quite small in his gigantic hands. Jaro Tapal was similar in many ways to Mace Windu. He was an extremely serious individual who believed strongly in the Jedi Order's mission. And on the battlefield, he was a destructive force with very few peers. He might have seemed like a stern military man, but to his Padawan Cal Kestis, he showed nothing but patience and shared with him only his deep wisdom and understanding of the Force. Jaro Tapal taught Cal Kestis about the importance of perseverance and learning from failure, something that would prove to be crucial during the young Padawan's future adventures, which unfortunately involved way too much platforming and puzzles. I personally would have preferred more complicated dialogue trees and party mechanics along with ranged weapons, if possible. Jaro Tapal and Cal Kestis were in the middle of a training exercise on the Venator-class Star Destroyer known as Albedo Brave when Order 66 was executed. Jaro would survive the initial assassination attempt from his clone commander and would order young Cal Kestis to escape via the maintenance passages. After sabotaging the Star Destroyer's main reactor, the two Jedi would meet at the escape pods. Before Jaro Tapal and Cal could escape, the Lasat is hit with multiple blaster rounds, but manages to cover Cal Kestis long enough so that he could open the hatch to the escape pod. Jaro Tapal would die shortly after in the escape pod, but not before telling Cal Kestis to continue the fight and to hold the line. Cal Kestis, however, would do the opposite, and he would just stay on the planet of Bracca for the next decade. This is where the escape pod had landed. He would work as a scrapper and hide his connection to the Jedi and the Force. Even when he links up with Siri Junda and begins a mission to restore the Jedi Order by recovering a Jedi holocron with a list of the galaxy's Force sensitives, Cal ultimately chooses to destroy the holocron instead of proceeding with this mission. And this is because Cal believes that these young souls should have a choice in deciding their own fate. By contacting all of these Force sensitives, Cal Kestis would be exposing these individuals to massive amounts of danger. Jaro Tapal most likely would have wanted Cal to continue fighting and training new Jedi, but of course Cal's story isn't completely over just yet, and maybe he'll find his own way to satisfy his master's last request. Not much is known about Jedi Master Minas Velti, but on the eve of Order 66, she found herself in the middle of a training session with a group of Jedi initiates. Jedi younglings were trained collectively by the temple by a variety of different masters, and although Minas Velti wasn't technically the master of any one of these initiates, she would immediately spring into defensive mode and protect her group of Jedi babies with the ferocity you would expect from a mother protecting her children. Minas Velti would do an admirable job during Order 66 and take out several clone troopers while ferrying her initiates to safety. When the group reaches the Grand Hall, she finally is gunned down, but manages to take out the last clone, threatening her initiates as she expires. Now, there are some individuals who believe that one of the younglings we see in the scene will actually one day turn into Reva, aka the third sister. I don't necessarily buy into this theory, but if it is true, at least one of the souls that Minas Velti gave her life up for will turn into a monster. Depa Billaba was the apprentice of Mace Windu, which alone should tell us more than enough about what type of Jedi Master she would become. Like Mace Windu, she would sit on the Jedi Council at a relatively young age, and this is because of her skill and sharp discipline, something that she inherited from her master. While Depa Billaba preferred Form 3 lightsaber technique, she was one of the rare individuals who actually was also taught Form 7 Vapad by the individual who created this dangerous but effective lightsaber form, Mace Windu. The war, unfortunately, would have a very negative impact on Depa Billaba's mental and physical well-being. She would be engaged in battle on the planet of Harun Kal, the former homeworld of Mace Windu. This was an incredibly hostile planet to fight on. The entire lowlands of Harun Kal was covered in a sea of toxic gases. The majority of sentient life clung onto a few plateaus and thick mountainous rainforests that rose out of these toxic seas. Master Depa Billaba would lead her clone battalion into battle and suffer up to 90% casualties while fighting against General Grievous. The Jedi Master barely made it out of the situation alive herself and was forced to spend 6 months in a coma recovering in a Bacta tank from the ordeal. Depa would ultimately go under a full assessment by the Jedi Council and medical team, and she would be cleared for active duty. It was around this time that Billaba would take on a youngling named Caleb Dume as her apprentice. She was drawn by the youngling's strategic mind. During a lesson about the Jedi Temple beacon taught by Obi-Wan Kenobi, Caleb Dume asked the older Jedi whether the beacon could be used to warn Jedi away from Coruscant. Now, the other younglings kind of were shocked by this question because Coruscant has always been their home, and they couldn't think of any reason why the Jedi would be in danger in their temple. But Obi-Wan Kenobi took this question seriously, which was a really good thing, because as we all know, during Order 66, he would actually use the beacon to warn other Jedi Knights to keep away from Coruscant. Depa didn't really have much time with Caleb before Order 66 was triggered. At the time, Caleb was finally getting used to serving alongside Depa's clone battalion, and they were positioned on the world of Color. Caleb Dume was especially excited about witnessing the Special Forces unit known as the Bad Batch in action. The two Jedi would watch from a foxhole as the Bad Batch easily took apart an entire Separatist droid company. Impressed, the young Jedi Padawan decides to tag along with the commando unit on their next mission, but as he leaves his master behind, the clones get the order to begin firing on the Jedi. Caleb attempts to return back to his master, but she orders him to run. She would eventually be overwhelmed by blaster fire. Depa Billaba had always told Caleb that a Jedi must be prepared to sacrifice themselves for the sake of others. She would reinforce that lesson with her actions that day, and one day, Caleb Dume, as Kanan Jarrus, would do the same for individuals that he loved. Cin Drallig was the Jedi Order's Battlemaster. At any given time, there was really just one Jedi who would hold this rank and title in the entire Order. It was only given to the most skilled duelists, as the Battlemaster Cin Drallig had to master every form of lightsaber combat, and he would also basically teach every youngling who went through the halls of the Jedi Temple. God damn it! He would even train skillful individuals like Anakin Skywalker and his master, Obi-Wan Kenobi. Cin Drallig's secondary duty as Battlemaster was commanding the Jedi Temple guards and protecting the temple. During Order 66, he would stand with his fellow Jedi Knights and fight to the death, trying to hold off the advance of the 501st Legion. In the end, it would be his former trainee Anakin Skywalker who would defeat him in combat. Jedi Knights Kento, Marek, and Jedi Molly fell in love in the midst of the Clone Wars. Kento Marek was a warrior. He was impulsive and wanted to find glory on the battlefield, whereas Molly was a compassionate individual who clearly saw all the suffering the war was causing. The two would get married and have a child. They would form emotional attachments that were forbidden by the Jedi Temple, and so they would leave the Order in self-imposed exile before Order 66 was carried out. Unfortunately, they would settle on the world of Kashyyyk, which was in the midst of a horrific battle between Republic-backed Wookiee forces and the Separatist droid army. Molly would die trying to protect a group of Wookiees from Trandoshan mercenaries and slavers, leaving Kento Marek to raise their son Galen all by himself. Now, Galen Marek was incredibly powerful in the Force. Darth Vader would arrive on the planet after Order 66, and he was able to quickly defeat Kento Marek in combat. The Jedi Knight would try his best to hide his son away from the Sith Lord, but right as Vader was about to strike him down, Galen Marek would actually use the Force to grab the lightsaber out of his hands. Darth Vader would take interest in the young Galen Marek and train him as a secret apprentice who would be known as Starkiller. This, unfortunately, is now considered legends. So there you have it, guys. 5 individuals who gave their lives protecting the future of the Jedi Order. Even in the Jedi Order's darkest and most confused times, you still had bright individuals like these who would stand up for what was right or wrong, no matter what the higher council dictated. I hope you guys enjoyed today's episode. Don't forget to subscribe and hit that notification button down below so you don't miss out on the rest of our awesome content. As usual, my name is Alan, reminding you that my allegiance is to the Republic, to democracy.